My name is Laura. I'm from Montreal. Grew up there and lived there for like first 20 years of my life, and then I moved to Toronto. Growing up, I definitely had a really rocky relationship with my parents, more specifically my dad. My dad definitely abused alcohol. Like, he was an alcoholic. My brother's an alcoholic, so that runs through my family. And that definitely led to him having like anger management issues. So growing up, there was a lot of physical abuse, or like what you would consider nowadays physical abuse. I know there's like a gray area between like spanking and disciplining your children versus physical abuse. But he would hit my brothers, and he would often like yell and scream. Like, I was literally petrified of him growing up. Like, we did not have a good relationship at all. So I think that was my first view of a toxic relationship, and especially like a toxic masculine figure in my life. Right. Yeah. I feel like growing up, or like as kids, we're taught that abuse is just purely physical abuse or maybe sexual abuse, but we're never really taught about the emotional abuse or even verbal abuse. Yeah, so much. Like, there's so much more than just physical or sexual. So I feel like when I was in my first toxic, abusive relationship, it started with the emotional abuse and the verbal abuse, which you don't really realize when you're in it because you're not taught as a kid. And also growing up, I feel like specifically women or girls that were taught, like, oh, when a guy's mean to you, that means he likes you. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so toxic and ingrained in us to just accept that kind of behavior. And you think like, oh, well, it's because he loves me that he's acting this way. He's just very protective over me, and he's just showing his love. And yeah, it's just a toxic spiral. Like, I can't even think of like teachers or anything. I think the most was like my aunt was in a physically abusive relationship when she was growing up and had to live with my mom for a while. And my mom like told me the story, but that was the most like it was ever spoken about. And again, it was like focused on the fact that he like physically hit her. So, in your head, you're like, obviously that is wrong. You would leave, but it's never talked about all the emotional aspects of it. Or if your partner is verbally abusing you, like, that's just normal, or that's just okay.
Right. Yeah.
I was in high school and I was dating this guy, and it started with like the verbal abuse, and it started with things like little controlling things of like telling me what I could and couldn't wear, or who I could and couldn't talk to, or getting mad whenever I went out with friends, or getting mad if I talked to a specific person, just little things like that, which at the time you don't realize is very toxic and abusive. It got to the point where like I wasn't allowed to wear V-neck shirts or like skirts or dresses. Like, he would get so angry. But to me, it was just like, oh, well, you have to show respect to your boyfriend. Like, if he's angry about it, like, you have to respect him and do what he says, kind of thing. And then it's turned into like the verbal abuse, and anytime we would fight, it would be like all the names in the book, like bitch, cunt, slut, whore, all that shit. Which, like, now in my relationship since then, I could never imagine speaking to my partner like that, or vice versa. Like, that is just not okay.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I think that's also just so normalized in relationships nowadays too. Like, everyone's just, yeah, we fight, we call each other this and that, and then you make up. It's like, where's the respect for your partner? Like, I don't care how angry you are, how mad you are at each other. Like, respect one another and work through it, right, other than just like yelling nasty ass words to each other. Yeah, and so it started with that. And then he also had like a drinking problem, and he started using drugs, and it was always like he was always drunk or high whenever like these big explosive fights would happen. And then I remember one night we were at a party, and he was like fucked up out of his mind. He was angry, and then he just like hit me across the face in front of everyone. Like, everybody saw. And it was just like so mortifying and embarrassing because that was my partner. And like I still stayed with him after that. And like even my friends who were friends with him and his group of friends, like kind of just normalized it. And it was just like, oh, well, he was drunk. Like, and I'm not friends with that group of friends anymore because of like the lack of support, or the lack of, like, in the moment you're so in love with the person and you do everything you can to protect them and their reputation and protect their character, and then sometimes it takes a while for you to realize what you went through. And when I finally broke up with him, I just needed that support from that group of friends, and it just wasn't there. And it was like, to me, it was like, how can you still be friends with someone who treats another human being this way? Yeah. It was just like so normalized among my group of friends at the time that I was just like, well, he was effed up and you didn't mean it. And it's just like, I don't care what state you're in. Like, do not ever lay your hands on another person like that. So I actually didn't like talk about it for a very, very long time. I didn't tell my family about it. I didn't tell like different groups of friends about it that didn't know him. And it was really like, obviously therapy, lots and lots of therapy. But it was really through like theater. Like, as you know, I'm an actor and I went to theater school, and there were a lot of just different projects where we just had to write different stories about our lives, or just create little like 10-minute pieces, or just of whatever you wanted. And all of my stories always related back to like my experience with him and my experience with my father growing up. And it was really through like writing about it and just like letting it out and coming to terms with how I feel. Like that was my healing process. Just like getting my thoughts out on paper and finally just like not bottling up inside. And now I'm just more comfortable talking about it. Like I can talk about it and not cry every time, you know? It's like, it took a long time, but yeah, it's just really like acknowledging everything that happened. I'm an actor, I'm a model, I'm also a barista. I'm in a very loving, healthy relationship with a woman. Who knew? Yeah, and actually my partner and I are planning on moving in together soon in May. So things are going well. Things are good. Just speak out. Just talk about it. Talk to anyone about it. Even if at first you don't find that support, because I didn't, and then I didn't talk about it for a long time. Like, there will be someone who has gone through a similar experience, or there will be someone that will support you and listen to you and believe you. And that's just the biggest piece of advice I can give, is just talk about it and let it out. Like, don't keep it all to yourself. Don't let it bottle up inside.
Is there anything you want to add
To anyone else that has maybe gone through a similar experience, you're not alone. And you are loved, and you are strong, and you are important, and your voice matters. And speak up.